thank you for inviting me to speak with you tonight on a topic that is very close to my heart, the educational institution I was most recently at. And there are a few days every once in a while where I miss being at the seminary, but by and large I don't miss it too much. It's kind of nice to have gone through that and now now applying the knowledge that I received there, the training that I received there. Our synod has two seminaries, one in St. Louis called Concordia Seminary, and one in Fort Wayne, Indiana, called Concordia Theological Seminary. That's the distinction. Not very creative, are we? Both called Concordia. That's the seminary's symbol. If you ever see that, that's an outline of their chapel, a very distinctive feature of the campus that I'll talk about some more in just a minute. I gave this presentation for the pace setters, and I didn't have my information totally straight yet at that point, so I've revised this a little bit, and I'm happy to present to you a complete, well, somewhat complete, history of the seminary. It'll only take a couple slides, don't worry. It was founded in 1846 by three different Germans. Friedrich Conrad Dietrich, I believe, Winnekin, Johann Conrad Wilhelm Leah, and Wilhelm Seeler. All of those people have buildings named after them still to this day at the seminary campus. Okay? They were German immigrants to the U.S. Leah never actually made it to America. He stayed in Germany, but he provided the bucks to get this thing going. Whereas Winnekin and Seeler were actually the two guys that were on the ground here in the Fort Wayne area. They made it happen physically, but Leah fundraised like crazy and gave the money for this seminary to be built. First building was constructed actually 3 years later. It first met in the home. The first building was constructed in 1849. It was originally dubbed the Practical Seminary, while St. Louis, the seminary there, was called the Theoretical Seminary, whatever that means. The Fort Wayne Seminary, this is going to be confusing, moved to St. Louis in 1861. And the two seminaries continued to exist as separate entities, but they shared a building for some years. Okay. Fort Wayne, the one that wasn't Fort Wayne, was geared especially toward practical theology, how to turn out pastors. The St. Louis Seminary was especially geared toward high academic learning, how to turn out theologians, professors, the highly academic. And while those emphases definitely aren't quite as stringent anymore at the two seminaries as they once were, but that's why they kept two distinct seminaries still, even though they were meeting in the same building. One to train theologians, professional theologians, as in professors, one to train theologians who would apply their theology in congregations as pastors. The Fort Wayne, now to St. Louis Seminary, moved again to Springfield, Illinois in 1875, where it stayed for 100 years. Okay? And at the time when it was in Springfield, most of the students who studied there were actually born in America, while the seminary in St. Louis, for a while anyway, retained mostly German-born students. You know, their academic training as youngsters was vastly different from the training that the American-born theologians had received. It was more advanced, to be honest with you, if you were living in Germany. And so they would come over to America with a higher degree of learning, more of a desire to be professional professors. And so that atmosphere at St. Louis continued for a while. That was the place where you went if you wanted to be a teacher in the church, a teacher at one of the colleges or seminaries. And the Fort Wayne Seminary, now in Springfield, continued for some time to be the one that turned out most of the pastors, some 60 to 70% of the pastors in the synod, up until the time it moved to Fort Wayne in 1976. So it's kind of a homecoming of sorts for it to come full circle and for that seminary to finally get back to its town of origin. The current campus was originally designed as a senior college, and that senior college no longer exists. Right about the time of 1973-74, it consolidated with the junior college in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And now we know that as Concordia University in Ann Arbor. The seminary campus was designed by the world-renowned Finnish architect. I like that because I'm almost totally Finnish. Eero Saarinen. He also designed things such as the St. Louis Arch. And he designed the seminary to look like a Finnish fishing village. And so you'll see in some of the photos, there's a lake, a man-made lake, and no big buildings, but a bunch of small buildings that surround that lake to look like a Finnish fishing village. Okay, I got the move back to Fort Wayne there in 1976. I'm going to show some pictures for you. These are the ones I got from the seminary's Department of Public Relations. This is a shot of the chapel. This is definitely the building if you ever go to the campus. Any of you been there before, by the way? Okay, yeah. A couple. All right. If you go to the campus, the chapel sticks out like a sore thumb. It rises above everything else. It's obviously the center point of the campus, and that was Saarinen's goal in creating things the way he did. It towers above everything else. It's the center of the campus life, and that's so appropriate that as students and faculty gather every day for worship, multiple times a day if people want to, but for one main service every day, that this is actually viewed as one of the classrooms at the seminary. Doesn't that make sense? It being in the church. We as students learn quite a bit in this building even as to how to conduct worship, how to preach, etc. And so this was viewed as classroom number one in a lot of ways. That's kind of a unique educational philosophy. Notice the bricks. See how they're all diamond? There are diamond-shaped bricks throughout the campus. The chapel is the only building where the bricks point up, or they're vertical. Everything else, all the other buildings, the bricks are horizontal, and Saarinen did that intentionally. Obviously, the praises of God's people rising to heaven, and God blessing his people as well with his gifts, that up and down in the chapel. Whereas all the other buildings were walking together as students and faculty together in one confession of faith, and so the bricks are horizontal. This is the bell from the Springfield campus. They brought it over. It's very small compared to the new bell, but they did stick it behind the chapel. You get a view here of some of the beauty of the campus. It's bricked, the walkways the whole way through. You see them on the ground there. And this is one of the 5 days a year that the sun shines in Fort Wayne. So it seems. Very dreary there, lots of fog. This is a view from the gymnasium. This is kind of the back side of the campus. And you can see the chapel rising above everything else. The student commons is the smaller building there right in the middle of the picture. This is a pretty big day. Graduation day is worthless as a seminary student. The call day is everything. You don't care about graduation, you care about call day. This is a day in April. Actually, this year it's in May. They moved it back a week for some reason, where all the candidates who will be getting calls for the first time find out where they're going. And obviously, I went through this not too long ago myself. But you know what? I knew I was coming here. And here's why. I knew that this congregation had interviewed candidates from both seminaries, and there were 2 of us from Fort Wayne, and I believe, don't quote me, 3 from St. Louis that were interviewed. Well, the other guy from Fort Wayne I knew, and he had decided to do more graduate work, and so I knew he was out of the running. The St. Louis call service was the night before ours, and so I